Hey everyone, it's Emma. So, you will not believe what happened to me today. I actually left the house without my phone. I know, right? It sounds crazy, even to me. I was already halfway to the coffee shop when I instinctively reached into my bag, and it just wasn't there. That hollow feeling, you know? It's like leaving a part of yourself behind. Honestly, it felt so weird, like walking around in a silent movie after being used to a constant soundtrack of notifications. The world felt different, quieter. I actually looked up and noticed the sunshine, the people walking by, the cute dog across the street. And you know what? It was actually kind of liberating. I felt surprisingly light and present. It was a little unsettling at first, I'll admit, but it turned into this unexpected little adventure. I can't wait to tell you all about it. So, let's begin our exciting journey of English improvement together. And remember, I release new videos daily, focusing on English speaking and listening skills, to help you improve and enjoy your learning journey. Okay, so grab a cuppa, settle in, because I have a story to tell you. It's about my recent trip to the local theater, the Grand Majestic, or as I affectionately call it, the Majestic Mess. Now, I'm not a theater snob or anything, but I do appreciate a good show, you know. And this was an experience. It all started with the flyer. A bright, almost offensively pink flyer advertising a local production of The Pirates of Penzance. Now, Gilbert and Sullivan? Not usually my jam. A little too much? You know, the tights, the vibrato, the whole shebang. But my friend, Brenda, bless her cotton socks, is obsessed. Absolutely, head over heels obsessed. And she'd been dropping hints the size of pirate galleons for weeks. So, I caved. Why not? I thought. Support local theater, have a laugh, maybe even wear a silly hat. Fast forward to Saturday night. The Majestic Mess, living up to its nickname, was in full swing. The air vibrated with a strange mix of perfume, mothballs, and something vaguely reminiscent of popcorn. I swear, that place has a unique aroma. Like history, dust, and dreams, all rolled into one. Brenda, of course, was buzzing with excitement. She was decked out in a pirate-themed scarf and a pair of opera glasses that looked like they'd been salvaged from the Titanic. Me? I opted for comfy jeans and a sweater. Practicality over piracy, right? Finding our seats was an adventure in itself. The Majestic Mess has this charmingly chaotic seating arrangement. Think narrow aisles, creaky chairs, and a lot of apologetic shuffling. We finally squeezed into our row, nestled between a very enthusiastic elderly gentleman humming sea shanties and a teenage girl furiously texting. The atmosphere? Electric. Or maybe that was just the faulty wiring. Who knows? The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the audience, punctuated only by the rustling of sweet wrappers and the aforementioned sea shanties. And then, the curtain rose. Now, I've seen amateur productions before. I've witnessed forgotten lines, wardrobe malfunctions, the occasional prop mishap. But this was different. From the moment the Major General's song began, it was clear this wasn't just a performance, it was a spectacle. A gloriously, hilariously chaotic spectacle. The lead pirate, bless his heart, seemed to be battling a rogue mustache that kept threatening to detach itself. The modern Major General, a portly gentleman with a surprisingly strong voice, tripped over his sword not once, not twice, but 3 times. And the chorus? Oh, the chorus. They were enthusiastic. Let's just say their synchronized movements were more synchronized swimming in a hurricane than synchronized swimming. But here's the thing. It was infectious. The sheer joy, the unadulterated enthusiasm radiating from that stage was impossible to resist. Even the mistakes, the flubbed lines, the near disasters, became part of the charm. The audience was in stitches. I was crying with laughter. Brenda, predictably, was having the time of her life, singing along to every word and occasionally shouting encouragement at the beleaguered pirates. There was this one moment, I'll never forget it. The Pirate King, mid-leap, lost his eye patch. It sailed through the air, a tiny black disc of comedic gold, and landed squarely in the lap of the texting teenager. She looked down at it, then up at the one-eyed Pirate King, then back at the eye patch. A slow smile spread across her face. She picked it up and, with a mischievous grin, tossed it back to him. He caught it, winked, and carried on as if nothing had happened. The audience roared. It was pure magic. The second act was even more eventful. The set, which I'm pretty sure was constructed from cardboard boxes and leftover Christmas tinsel, started to collapse during a particularly vigorous sword fight. The pirates, bless their resourceful souls, incorporated the crumbling scenery into the fight, turning it into an impromptu demolition derby. It was brilliant. Truly, truly brilliant. And then, there was the finale. The entire cast, pirates, policemen, maidens, and even the stagehands, came out for the final bow. They were beaming, sweating, slightly disheveled, but utterly triumphant. The audience erupted in applause. A standing ovation for a performance that was less polished and more passionate. You know what I mean? It wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was genuine. It was a celebration of community, creativity, and the sheer joy of putting on a show. As we shuffled out of the majestic mess, the air still thick with the scent of history, dust, and dreams, and maybe a hint of burnt popcorn, I felt happy. Genuinely happy. It wasn't the slickest production I'd ever seen, not by a long shot. But it was, without a doubt, the most memorable. It reminded me of the power of local theater, the magic of shared experience, and the importance of embracing imperfection. Brenda, still buzzing from the performance, chattered excitedly about the costumes, the music, the sheer brilliance of it all. I listened, smiling, thinking about the rogue mustache, the flying eye patch, the collapsing set, and the pure, unadulterated joy that radiated from that stage. So, yeah, that was my experience at the local theater. The majestic mess. A place where dreams are made, sets crumble, mustaches detach, and eye patches fly. A place where imperfection is celebrated, and laughter echoes through the dusty rafters. It wasn't Broadway, not even close. But you know what? I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was an experience. A real, honest, beautifully messy experience. And sometimes, that's exactly what you need. Right? What do you think? Have you ever had a similar experience? I'd love to hear about it. Okay, so grab a cup of something warm, get comfy, because I have to tell you about this. Learning to drive. Oh, my goodness. It was an experience. A saga, really. A comedy of errors, maybe? You'll be the judge. It all started, as these things often do, with a burning desire for freedom. I was 16, living in this tiny little town where the bus schedule was basically a suggestion. You know, the kind of place where if you missed it, you might as well pack a lunch and wait for the next one. So, freedom. On 4 wheels. That was the dream. My dad, bless his heart, volunteered as tribute. He had this ancient, beat-up station wagon. Seriously, it was older than I was. Beige. Giant. It smelled like old vinyl and something vaguely musty. I called it the Beast. He called it reliable. Tomato. Our first lesson was in a vast, empty parking lot on a Sunday morning. It was crisp. The air smelled faintly of donuts from the nearby bakery, and I was buzzing with nervous energy. Dad explained the basics. The pedals, the gears, oh, the dreaded stick shift, the mirrors. It all sounded simple enough. Famous last words, right? He got in the passenger seat, buckled up, and with a dramatic flourish, said, "Okay, kiddo. Show me what you got." I took a deep breath, grabbed the steering wheel, which, by the way, felt enormous in my hands, put my foot on the clutch, and stalled. Immediately, dead silence. Then, a sputter, and the car lurched forward about an inch. My dad chuckled. I grimaced. This was not the smooth, effortless start I had envisioned. We repeated this process, stall, lurch, chuckle, grimace, approximately 50 more times. My left leg started to cramp from the clutch. The smell of burnt rubber was starting to mingle with the donut aroma. My confidence? Yeah, let's just say it had taken a holiday. You're overthinking it, Dad said, sensing my mounting frustration. Just feel it. Listen to the car. Feel it? Listen to the car? The car was screaming at me in a language I didn't understand. But, okay, deep breaths. Feel it. Listen. Easier said than done. Slowly, painstakingly slowly, I started to get the hang of it. Not stalling. Every 2 seconds was a major victory. Then came the steering. Oh, the steering. You'd think going in a straight line would be, you know, straightforward. Not so much. I was weaving all over the place, like a tipsy sailor navigating a choppy sea. Less is more, Dad advised patiently. Small adjustments. Right. Small adjustments. Unless I accidentally yanked the wheel too hard and ended up facing the opposite direction. That happened. More than once. The next hurdle was the gears. Getting from first to second felt like wrestling. A greased pig. There was grinding, there was jerking, there was the distinct smell of burning clutch. Poor beast. I was pretty sure it was questioning all its life choices at this point. But, you know what? Something amazing happened. Amidst all the stalling, the lurching, the awkward steering, and the gear-grinding chaos, I actually started to enjoy it. There was this strange satisfaction in figuring things out, in feeling the car respond, however clumsily, to my commands. It was like learning a secret language, a dance between me and this giant, beige metal beast. The parking lot became our regular Sunday morning hangout. Week after week, we'd go out there, and I'd practice. Slowly but surely, I got better. The stalling became less frequent. The steering less erratic. The gear changes less violent. I even managed to parallel park, once, without taking out any imaginary pedestrians. It was a monumental occasion. Then came the day. The day Dad said, "Okay, Let's try it on the road. Gulp. The actual road. With other cars. And traffic lights. And, actual people. My palms were sweaty, my heart was racing, and I'm pretty sure my knees were knocking together. We started on quiet back roads, me gripping the steering wheel like my life depended on it. It was terrifying and exhilarating, all at the same time. Every car that passed felt like a potential disaster. Every turn a test of my newfound skills. But I did it. I actually drove. On a real road. Remember that feeling of accomplishment when you finally learned to ride a bike? It was like that, but magnified by 8,000. I felt like I could conquer the world. Or at least, drive to the mall without needing a chaperone. Of course, there were still some incidents. Like the time I mistook the gas pedal for the brake and nearly drove through the front window of the local bakery. Bye-bye, donut aroma. Or the time I stalled at a green light, causing a minor traffic jam and earning a chorus of honks. Oops. But each mistake was a learning experience. A little badge of honor in my driver's education saga. And so, my friend, that's the story of how I learned to drive. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't graceful. But it was definitely mine. It was a journey of frustration, laughter, near disasters, and ultimately, triumph. And you know what? I wouldn't trade it for the world. Because in the end, it wasn't just about learning to drive a car. It was about learning to trust myself, to overcome challenges, and to embrace the freedom of the open road. Even if it meant smelling faintly of burnt rubber for a while. So, what do you think? Pretty epic, right? Now, tell me about your driving experience. I'm betting it's a good one. Hey everyone, learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain, but remember, every step you take brings you closer to the summit. Make your today better, so you can be proud of your tomorrow. This isn't just a motivational quote. It's a reminder that every bit of practice, every new word you learn, builds towards a future where you can speak English confidently and fluently. Imagine that feeling of pride. It's totally worth the effort. You know what I've found really helpful? Watching movies and repeating lines. It might sound simple, but it's incredibly effective. Picture this. You're making dinner, and your favorite movie is playing in the background. You hear a line you like and repeat it, mimicking the actor's intonation. It's fun, effortless practice woven right into your daily routine. You will not believe how much it helps with pronunciation and natural phrasing. Honestly, it felt like magic the first time I understood most of a conversation in English. But then, handling phone calls professionally, that felt like a whole new challenge. Do you also find yourself understanding what others say in English, but hesitate when it's your turn to speak, especially in formal settings like a phone call? It's totally normal to feel a bit nervous, wanting to make a good impression. We've all been there, and you know what? That brings me to something I've been thinking about lately. I remember feeling so tongue-tied during my first English phone call. It was for a job interview, and I was a nervous wreck. How do you overcome hesitation while speaking? Sharing our experiences can really help, so I'd love to hear your tips and tricks in the comments below. Let's learn and grow together. So, you want to hear about my hiking experiences, huh? Grab a cup of something warm. This might take a while. Because, you see, hiking, for me isn't just one thing. It's a whole collection of stories, a mixed bag of triumphs and, well, less triumphant moments. Let me start with the one that really kicked off my shall we say, relationship with the trails. It all started innocently enough. Picture this. I'm scrolling through Instagram, doing the usual mindless thumb gymnastics, and I see this breathtaking photo. Sun-drenched peaks, a crystal-clear lake reflecting the sky like a mirror, a tiny figure perched on a rock, arms outstretched like they're embracing the whole darn world. And the caption? Something ridiculously inspiring like, "Find your peace in the wilderness." Yeah, right. My peace was usually found on the couch with a good book and a purring cat. But something about that photo, it sparked something. A tiny, flickering flame of adventure, buried under layers of comfy blankets and Netflix binges. So, naturally, I did the most logical thing. I texted my friend, Sarah, a self-proclaimed outdoor enthusiast, read, slightly crazy, and declared, "We're going hiking." Sarah, bless her cotton socks, was ecstatic. She immediately started bombarding me with links to hiking gear websites, trail maps, and survival guides. Survival guides? Seriously? We were going for a hike, not scaling Mount Everest. But I played along, nodding and smiling while secretly wondering if I could pull off faking a sudden illness. The day of the hike finally arrived. I'd invested in some interesting hiking attire. Bright pink leggings. Because why not? A slightly too big t-shirt with a cartoon squirrel on it. Don't judge. And a pair of brand new hiking boots that I hadn't even bothered to break in. Looking back, I clearly deserved a Darwin Award. The trailhead was, well, let's just say it wasn't quite as picturesque as the Instagram photo. It was more dusty and crowded and full of people who actually looked like they knew what they were doing. My confidence, which had been teetering precariously, took a nosedive. Sarah, on the other hand, was practically vibrating with excitement. She had this whole into the wild vibe going on, with her cargo pants, sturdy boots, and a backpack that looked like it contained the entire contents of a camping store. The first hour was manageable. The trail was relatively flat, the scenery was pleasant enough. Lots of trees. Some birds chirping. Nature stuff. And I even managed to keep up with Sarah's surprisingly brisk pace. I was actually starting to feel, dare I say it, enjoyable? Then came the incline. Oh, the incline. It started subtly, a gentle slope that lulled me into a false sense of security. But then it got steeper. And steeper. And steeper. My breath started coming in ragged gasps, my legs turned to jelly, and my bright pink leggings felt like they were slowly suffocating me. Remember those brand new hiking boots? Yeah, they decided this was the perfect moment to stage a rebellion. Blisters, the size of small grapes, erupted on my heels, each step sending jolts of pain through my body. I wanted to cry. I wanted to turn back. I wanted to teleport myself back to my couch and my cat. But Sarah, ever the optimist, kept chirping away about the stunning views that awaited us at the summit. Just a little further, she'd say, her voice full of infuriating cheerfulness. You can do it. I'm not sure how, but I did do it. Or rather, I crawled, stumbled, and wheezed my way to the top. And you know what? The view, it was stunning. The mountains stretched out before us, cloaked in a blanket of green. The air was crisp and clean, and the world seemed to stretch on forever. For a moment, I forgot about the pain, the blisters, the ridiculous outfit. For a moment, I felt that flicker of adventure ignite into a full-blown blaze. The descent, however, was a different story. Going down was somehow even worse than going up. My knees screamed in protest with every step, my blisters throbbed like a disco beat, and I'm pretty sure I left a trail of tears and sweat in my wake. By the time we reached the trailhead, I was a broken woman. My legs were shaking, my clothes were soaked, and my hair looked like a bird's nest that had exploded. Sarah, meanwhile, looked like she'd just stepped out of a shampoo commercial. Seriously, how was that even possible? I swore I'd never hike again. Never. Ever. I limped home, collapsed onto my couch, and spent the next 3 days nursing my blisters and cursing Sarah's name. But then, a funny thing happened. The pain subsided, the blisters healed, and the memories of the struggle started to fade. What remained was the memory of that view. The feeling of accomplishment. The sense of peace? Yeah, maybe even a little bit of peace. So, guess what happened next? I went hiking again. And again. And again. I learned from my mistakes. I invested in proper hiking shoes. Goodbye, pink leggings. I started small. I listened to my body. And slowly but surely, I fell in love with it. Not the Instagram perfect version of hiking, but the real, messy, challenging, and ultimately rewarding experience. It's not always pretty, you know? There are still moments of doubt, of exhaustion, of wanting to give up. There was that one time I got hopelessly lost in a fog, convinced I'd be eaten by bears. Turns out, squirrels are much more common. Or the time I slipped in mud and ended up looking like a swamp monster. But even those experiences, looking back, they add to the tapestry, don't they? They make the triumphs even sweeter. Hiking, for me, has become more than just exercise. It's a way to connect with nature, to challenge myself, to clear my head, to find a little bit of that elusive peace. It's a journey, not just a destination. And it's a journey I'm still on, one blister, one aching muscle, one breathtaking view at a time. So, yeah, that's my story. Or at least, the beginning of it. You want to hear about the time I encountered a mountain goat? Oh, boy, do I have a story for you. Okay, so, you know how sometimes the most mundane things can turn into these epic little adventures? Well, this story is exactly like that. It's about a bag. A simple, everyday, kind of worn-out canvas tote bag. Nothing fancy, right? But this bag holds a story. See, my grandma made it for me years ago. She was a whiz with a sewing machine, a true artist with fabric. She could whip up anything, curtains, dresses, quilts that looked like stained glass windows, you name it. And this bag, it was one of her last creations. It's a creamy off-white, with these little embroidered bluebells scattered across it, just like the ones that used to grow wild in her garden. I used that bag for everything. Grocery shopping, library runs, beach trips. It was my trusty sidekick. It held everything from sandy towels and half-eaten apples to overdue library books and, once, a surprisingly calm baby chick. Long story. Over the years, it faded and frayed a bit. The handles became softer, almost velvety from use. The bottom corners wore thin, developing these little character marks, like laugh lines on a well-loved face. And then it happened. The rip. I was rushing, as usual. Late for a pottery class. I'd gotten back into pottery, you know, trying to reconnect with my creative side. Anyway, I'd crammed the bag full of clay tools, a sketchbook, and a giant, awkward ceramic bowl I'd been working on. I swung the bag over my shoulder, and reap. I heard the sound clear as a bell. My heart sank. I looked down, and there it was. A jagged tear, right along the bottom seam, gaping open like a sleepy yawn. My first reaction? Complete and utter devastation. Seriously, I almost cried. It was silly, I know, just a bag. But it was Grandma's bag. And it felt like a little piece of her was gone. I stood there on the sidewalk, feeling utterly lost. What was I going to do? I couldn't just throw it away. It was too precious. But, could I fix it? I mean, my sewing skills were, well, let's just say I could barely sew a button back on. Grandma had tried to teach me, bless her heart. She'd sit me down at her ancient singer, patiently guiding my clumsy hands. But I just never got the hang of it. My stitches always looked like drunken earthworms. I took a deep breath, the crisp autumn air filling my lungs. The scent of fallen leaves and wood smoke hung in the air, reminding me of cozy evenings spent with Grandma, her hands flying over her sewing projects. Right then, I made a decision. I had to try. I owed it to the bag, and I owed it to her. So, I trudged back home, my pottery class forgotten. I dug through my closet, searching for my own little sewing kit, a brightly colored plastic box filled with mismatched threads and blunt needles. It looked pathetic compared to Grandma's overflowing sewing basket, a treasure trove of ribbons, buttons, and spools of thread in every color imaginable. I spread the ripped bag out on the kitchen table, gently smoothing out the fabric. The bluebells seemed to stare up at me, a silent encouragement. I threaded a needle. A surprisingly challenging feat, even with my reading glasses perched precariously on my nose. My hands were shaky, and I pricked my finger more times than I care to admit. "Okay, Grandma," I whispered, "let's see if you taught me anything." And I started to sew. It was a disaster. My stitches were uneven, wonky, and frankly, embarrassing. The thread tangled, the needle slipped, and the fabric puckered like a disgruntled prune. I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. I wanted to give up, to toss the whole thing in the trash and forget about it. But then I remembered something Grandma used to say, "Patience, dearie. Anything worth doing takes time." So, I took another deep breath, unpicked the mess I'd created, and started again. Slowly, painstakingly, stitch by agonizing stitch, I began to mend the tear. It wasn't pretty, not by a long shot. It looked more like Frankenstein's monster than a neat, professional repair job. But it was holding. As I sewed, I found myself thinking about Grandma. I remembered the rhythmic hum of her sewing machine, the way her hands moved with such effortless grace, the quiet concentration on her face. I remembered the smell of her lavender hand lotion, the warmth of her hugs, the sound of her laughter. You know, it's funny, isn't it? How the smallest things can trigger a flood of memories. The smell of cinnamon, a certain song on the radio, the feel of a worn-out piece of fabric. They can transport you back in time, make you feel like you're right there with someone you've lost. By the time I'd finished sewing, it was almost dark. The kitchen was a mess, littered with thread snippets and empty teacups. My fingers were sore, and my back ached. But I held up the bag, and I smiled. It wasn't perfect, but it was fixed. The tear was gone, replaced by a slightly lumpy, slightly uneven seam, a testament to my clumsy but determined efforts. And you know what? I kind of loved it. It wasn't just a bag anymore. It was a story. A story of love, loss, and the enduring power of memory. It was a reminder of my grandma, of her creativity, her patience, and her unwavering belief in me. The next day, I proudly carried that patched-up bag to my pottery class. People commented on it, some with amusement, some with admiration. I told them the story, and they listened, nodding and smiling. And guess what happened next? One of my classmates, a sweet older woman with twinkling eyes, asked me to teach her how to sew. She had a beloved old quilt that needed mending, she said, and she wanted to learn how to do it herself. So, there I was, a few days later, sitting at my kitchen table with this new friend, fumbling with needles and thread, just like Grandma and I used to do. And as I patiently guided her clumsy stitches, I felt a warmth spread through me, a sense of connection, of carrying on a legacy. It was like the little piece of Grandma was there with us, her gentle spirit weaving its way through the threads, connecting us all together. And that, my friend, is the story of the day I fixed a torn bag. It's a story about more than just a bag, really. It's a story about love, and loss, and the surprising ways we find connection and meaning in the most unexpected places. It's a story about how even the smallest acts of repair can mend not just fabric, but also our hearts. You know what I mean? Hey everyone, learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain, but you know what? The real fun of learning begins when you step out of your comfort zone. Think about it. That first shaky hello to a native speaker. The first time you order coffee entirely in English. Those moments, though nerve-wracking, are pure magic. They are the building blocks of fluency, and each one brings you closer to your goal. You absolutely can do this, and the journey itself holds so much joy. And speaking of stepping outside that comfort zone, have you ever tried practicing with tongue twisters? Honestly, it's more fun than you might think. Imagine yourself cooking dinner, and while you're stirring the pot, you're also effortlessly saying, "She sells seashells by the seashore." It's a quick, easy, and sneaky way to improve your pronunciation and fluency, almost like a secret weapon you can use anywhere, anytime. Explaining your problems clearly, isn't that something we all strive for? Do you also find yourself understanding what others say in English, but hesitate when it's your turn to speak? It's completely natural. Sometimes our thoughts race ahead, and the words just won't come out right. Believe me, you're not alone in this. It happens to everyone learning a new language. It's all part of the process. You will not believe what happened the other day. I was talking to a friend, and they used the idiom, break the leg, and it just reminded me how much personality these little phrases add to the language. And you know what? That got me thinking. Which English idiom do you love? Share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your favorites. Okay, so, you know how sometimes the smallest things can turn into an event? That's what happened to me the day I set up my new calendar. Sounds mundane, right? Oh, but it was anything but. Grab a cuppa, this is a story. It all started with a feeling. This low humming anxiety. Like a tiny mosquito. Buzzing around my brain, you know? I couldn't quite place it. I was feeling generally okay. Life was good, even. But there was this fuzziness. Like my days were blurring together, a watercolor painting left out in the rain. I'd been using my phone's calendar for ages. Practical, sure, but soulless. Just a sterile grid of digital boxes. It wasn't inspiring. And inspiration, my friend, is my oxygen. I'm a writer, a dreamer, a bit of a scatterbrain, if I'm honest. I need something tangible. Something I can touch. So, I did something impulsive. I ordered a beautiful, oversized wall calendar. I'm talking thick, creamy paper, a gorgeous botanical print, each month a riot of color. I imagined myself gracefully jotting down appointments, deadlines, bursts of inspiration, becoming, essentially, the organized, serene person I always aspired to be. The calendar arrived on a Tuesday. I remember it vividly. A blustery autumn day. The leaves outside my window were swirling in shades of amber and russet. The air smelled like wood smoke and damp earth. I ripped open the packaging, the crisp scent of new paper filling my senses. Oh, it was beautiful. Even more stunning in person. I felt a little thrill of anticipation? Hope, maybe? It was like holding a blank canvas, a promise of a more organized, more intentional life. And then, the setup began. I cleared a space on my wall, a patch previously occupied by a slightly wonky framed print of a Parisian café, which, let's be honest, had been hanging precariously for months. I grabbed my trusty hammer and, well, that's where things started to unravel. You see, the wall, it wasn't cooperating. Every time I tried to hammer in a nail, it would bend, or the plaster would crumble. Dust bunnies the size of small rodents erupted from the wall. It was chaos. My serene vision of organized bliss was rapidly disintegrating into a cloud of plaster dust and frustration. My fingers were covered in grime. My hair was escaping its messy bun. I think I even muttered a few words my grandmother wouldn't approve of. You know what I mean? Those moments where you question every life choice that led you to this precise, ridiculous moment? I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I was a capable adult. I could hang a calendar. Surely. I rummaged through my toolbox, a chaotic jumble of inherited tools and random bits and bobs, and found a drill. Now, I'm not exactly handy. The last time I used a drill, I almost electrocuted myself. But, desperate times. I plugged it in, the drill whirring to life with a surprisingly aggressive growl. It was intimidating. I cautiously approached the wall, feeling like I was about to wrestle a wild animal. The drill bit into the wall with an alarming crunch. Success, or so I thought. Guess what happened next? The drill slipped. A long, jagged scratch appeared on my freshly painted wall. I stared at it in horror. It was like the wall was mocking me. At this point, I was ready to throw the calendar out the window and crawl back into bed. But I'm stubborn. Also, the calendar was really, really pretty. So, I persevered. I patched the scratch, badly, found a different spot on the wall, and finally managed to get the calendar hung. It wasn't perfect. It was slightly crooked. The wall around it looked like a miniature earthquake had occurred. But it was up. And you know what? Standing back, looking at it, I felt a surge of something. Not quite serenity, not yet. But satisfaction. A quiet sense of accomplishment. It was just a calendar, I know. But in that moment, it represented more than just organized dates and appointments. It represented perseverance. It represented the messy, imperfect, sometimes comical reality of trying to create order out of chaos. I spent the next hour meticulously filling in birthdays, anniversaries, deadlines. As I wrote each entry, I felt a little bit of that initial fuzziness dissipate. It was like each pen stroke was anchoring me, grounding me in the present. I added little doodles, colorful stickers, inspirational quotes. It became more than a calendar. It became a reflection of me, of my hopes, my dreams, my quirky little world. Later that evening, curled up on the sofa with a mug of tea, I glanced at the calendar. The soft light from the lamp illuminated the vibrant colors, the carefully penned entries. And I smiled. It wasn't perfect. The wall still bore the scars of my battle. But it was mine. And in its own slightly wonky way, it was beautiful. And that, my friend, is the story of the day I set up a new calendar. A day that started with a low hum of anxiety and ended with a quiet sense of, well, maybe not quite serenity, but definitely something close. It's funny, isn't it? How the smallest things can sometimes hold the biggest lessons. It reminded me that life, like hanging a calendar, is rarely a straightforward process. There will be bumps, scratches, and dust bunnies the size of small rodents. But if you persevere, if you embrace the messiness, you might just find a little bit of beauty in the chaos. And maybe, just maybe, you'll even manage to hang your calendar straight next time. Though, knowing me, probably not. But hey, that's part of the fun, right? Okay. So, snuggle in. Grab yourself a mug of something warm. It doesn't have to be masala chai. But it would be perfect, wouldn't it? And let me tell you a story. It's a winter story, a cozy story. A story about, well, about making masala chai in winter. Sounds simple, right? But trust me, there's more to it than meets the eye. See? Winter where I grew up, it was a thing. Not just cold, but a deep, bone-chilling cold that seeped into everything. The kind of cold that made you want to burrow under blankets and never come out. The sky would be this pale, washed-out gray, and the air, crisp and biting, would sting your nostrils with every breath. You know that feeling? That kind of quiet stillness that hangs in the air just before the first snowflakes fall? That's the kind of winter I'm talking about. And in that kind of winter, there was only one thing that truly warmed you from the inside out. A steaming cup of masala chai. Now, my grandmother, bless her soul, she was the queen of masala chai. Her recipe wasn't written down anywhere, mind you. It was all in her head, in her hands, in the way she hummed a little tune while she worked. It was a ritual, almost sacred, the way she made it. And honestly, no one could quite replicate it. We tried, believe me, we all tried. But it never tasted quite the same. I remember this one particular winter evening. The wind was howling outside, rattling the windows of our old house, and the snow was coming down thick and fast. I was probably, I don't know, maybe 10 or 11 years old. Curled up on the sofa, wrapped in a thick, woolen blanket, my nose buried in a book. The kind of book that transports you to another world, you know? Where you forget about the cold and the wind and everything else. And then, that aroma. It started faint, a whisper of spice carried on the wind, but it quickly grew stronger, bolder. Ginger, cardamom, cinnamon, cloves, all mingling together in this warm, intoxicating embrace. It was my grandmother's chai, and suddenly, the book I was so engrossed in didn't hold a candle to the real magic brewing in the kitchen. I tiptoed into the kitchen, drawn in by the warmth and the scent. The room was dimly lit, the only light coming from the stovetop where a small pot was simmering away merrily. My grandmother stood there, her back to me, humming softly. The steam from the chai swirled around her, creating this almost ethereal halo. It was a picture of pure comfort and warmth, a scene etched forever in my memory. She turned, a gentle smile on her face. "Ah, my little bookworm," she said, her voice soft as the falling snow. "Come, have some chai. It will warm you right up." And oh, did it ever. That first sip, it was like liquid sunshine on a cloudy day. The spices danced on my tongue, the sweetness of the jaggery a perfect counterpoint to the sharp ginger. It warmed me from the inside out, chasing away the chill that had settled deep in my bones. That evening, I didn't just drink chai. I watched. I observed. I inhaled. I wanted to capture that magic, to bottle it up and keep it forever. I asked her a million questions. How much ginger, Nani? How long do you boil it? What's the secret? She just chuckled, a twinkle in her eye. There's no secret, Beta, she said, pinching my cheek affectionately. It's all about the love you put into it. Of course, 10-year-old me rolled my eyes at that. Love? I scoffed. It's about the spices, Nani. Now, looking back, I realize how wrong I was. Because years later, when I tried to recreate her chai, following her instructions to the letter, measuring everything precisely, it still wasn't the same. It was good, don't get me wrong, but it lacked that certain something. That magic touch. You see, my grandmother, she didn't just measure spices. She poured in memories, stories, and a whole lot of love with every pinch and every stir. It was the love for her family, the joy of sharing, the warmth of her heart that made her chai so special. It took me years, and many, many attempts, to finally understand what she meant. It wasn't just about the recipe. It was about the feeling. The intention. The moment. These days, when winter comes around, I find myself drawn to the kitchen, to the ritual of making masala chai. I gather my spices, the ginger root, the cardamom pods, the cinnamon sticks, each one a reminder of her. I grind them, slowly, deliberately, inhaling their intoxicating aroma, letting the memories flood back. And as the chai simmers on the stove, filling my kitchen with that familiar warmth, I find myself humming that same little tune she used to hum. It's not exactly the same, of course. My chai still doesn't quite taste like hers. But it's close. And every sip, every fragrant curl of steam, carries with it a piece of her, a piece of that winter evening, a piece of home. And you know what? Sometimes, when the wind howls outside and the snow falls thick and fast, I can almost feel her presence there with me. A gentle smile on her face. A twinkle in her eye, saying, "Ah, my little bookworm. Come, have some chai. It will warm you right up." And in that moment, in the warmth of the spices, in the quiet comfort of my kitchen, I feel a sense of peace, a sense of connection, a sense of love. And I realize, finally, that she was right all along. It really is all about the love you put into it. You know what I mean? Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching and for spending this time with me. I really appreciate you being here and staying connected. I love sharing these moments with you all. If you enjoyed this video and want to keep up with our daily English speaking and listening practice, don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, and share so you don't miss out on any new content. You know, before we go, it made me wonder, are you planning to meet someone special soon? It is always so lovely to hear what everyone is thinking about, and sharing your plans in the comments is a great way to practice your English and connect with others. See you tomorrow. And remember to take care, stay consistent with your practice, and have a wonderful day.